Hey, welcome to my UFC Fight Night Bader versus Nogueira 2. That's right, we've already seen this, but we're doing it again because, honestly, we're running out of stuff to do. Brought to you by WME. Anyway, I, of course, am Jon Lee, and I'm just coming to you. I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time. Last time, for 205, my video was like 35 minutes, and I wrote down like 6 fights and had 2 bets. And I just felt like that might have been a bit too long. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a couple of different videos. I'm going to make maybe like 3 to 5 videos, just with each bet I'm recommending or making on a few of these fights. So on this one, I'm going to start by giving you my sure thing parlay. But before I do that, let me just tell you a little bit about why I kind of look for sure things and favorites. I know that a lot of the other gamblers on MMA, they're really into the underdogs, and I think part of that, is value. There is value in the underdogs, but there's also the value in the psychic benefit, rather, in being right? Everyone else is doing this. I'm so smart. I saw this. And people really like that. And, in the long run, whether or not that pays off or not, who knows? It kind of depends on each gambler and how disciplined you are. But for me, I go the other way. And I used to do this. I used to just strictly bet pretty much heavy favorites or squash matches because I think on a long enough timeline, you do make money. And when me and my business partner were doing this, we went like 12-1, and I think we ended up making like $500 each. But this is why we stopped doing it. We ran into a big favorite losing in Renan Barão versus TJ Dillashaw, where I think we were laying like $600 or $700. So it was a really big loss on one fight. And it wiped out like half of our bankroll or something like that. So then I stopped gambling for a little bit. But I still am very risk averse when it comes to gambling. I'd much rather pay a little bit of juice to get the sure thing, or as close to a sure thing as you can get in gambling, obviously, blah, blah, blah. But here, I see a really good opportunity for another sure thing parlay. Like last week we had Joanna and Frankie Edgar. This week we have Ryan Bader and Claudia Gadelha. Now, they're both juiced up pretty heavily, but I'm going to show you why I think these are good bets. I'm also doing the videos a little differently with this kind of splitting the screens between here versus doing the PowerPoint. If you like the other one better or you have a preference, leave me a note in the comments because I don't really care. But I like to try different things. So I like to get the spreadsheet research just because it shows you what my thought process is, and it helps me as well. So Gadelha versus Casey, let's just start with the advantages. First big advantage, I think, is just a tier advantage. Gadelha's only losses in her entire MMA career are to the champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk in 2 pretty close back-and-forth fights. So that's it. Everyone else she's beaten, and beaten pretty handily, So I don't think Courtney Casey is just on her level. I just think this is a bounce-back fight after that close loss to Joanna because they want Gadelha to be in the mix. Courtney Casey does have a 4-inch reach advantage, which is significant, but I don't think she's going to be good enough at holding that reach advantage to keep Gadelha off her, keep her from getting taken down, beaten up, submitted, whatever. I'm leaning Gadelha. The camp, Gadelha's at Jackson's maybe, or she's doing her own thing in like the Northeast. Wasn't really sure on that. But Casey trains out of what's called Freak Fitness, so not an elite camp. Casey's also a couple years older. We go to our second page. Layoff is about the same. Here's 2 big advantages for Claudia here. One, winning percentage advantage of 20%, especially since she's fought much better competition. Like Casey has definitely fought the weaker schedule, and Claudia has basically crushed everyone who's not Joanna. The finishing rate, Casey has a 100% finishing rate, so she either finishes or she loses decisions, right? She has a submission loss and 2 decision losses, and she's finished. She got 3 KOs, TKOs, 3 submissions. But to me, that's honestly not an advantage here because that just speaks again to her lower level of competition. If you're finishing everyone, you're probably not fighting in the UFC for very long. Right? Because in the UFC, the finishes drop to about 50%. You're not finishing 100% of people in the UFC. It's just not happening. So that kind of also speaks to a disadvantage. Slight pace advantage for Casey, but 9.5 strikes a minute is the technical pace advantage according to the metrics, and Gadelha is pretty close to that. Casey's just a little higher. And then here are just kind of my own observations. Trend up or down. I think Gadelha is on a little bit of a downtrend, but it's artificial because she's fought the champion, right? She fought a close fight and now she's here to bounce back. Casey's coming off the best win of her career. No southpaws. Home cage is Gadelha in Brazil, so you figure if it's a close decision, she gets the decision. No debuts. They're both 2-2 in the UFC, but again, 2 losses to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, very different than a loss to Sam He-Ho or whatever. Best win, Jessica Aguilar. Claudia put a beating on her. And Ronda Marcos. That was a close fight that Casey snatched a submission in. Neither woman's been knocked out at all. So that's pretty much it. I think it's a pretty clear squash match. They want Claudia to get back on the slide. Like, Casey could overachieve here, but I think she basically has a puncher's/submission chance. I'm very, very comfortable picking Claudia there. Let's go back to Roger Nog and Ryan Bader. So they're saying about 77% chance Ryan Bader wins this fight according to the odds, minus 350. I think it's lower. I think it's higher than that. I think Ryan Bader has like a 90% chance of winning. And again, tiers come into it, right? Ryan Bader is basically the best of the dudes who aren't top-tier fighters at 205. You've got Johnson, Jones, Cormier, Gustafsson in some order. Jones at the top if you want to really argue about it. And then the next tier down after Gustafsson, Ryan Bader is the best guy in that group. He's better than OSP. He's better than Phil Davis. He's better than Glover, I think. Glover, it might be close. He got that knockout, but Ryan Bader was beating Glover up before he got caught, and that's kind of what Ryan Bader does. He gets caught by big punchers. But Nogueira's not a big puncher like that, despite his TKO win recently over Cummins. Cummins has a tendency to get knocked out. He's been finished by OSP. He's been finished by Teixeira. He's been finished by Cormier. Basically, every time he steps up, he gets a beating. So it's not that impressive of a win. He doesn't have a great chin. Leaning Bader, Power is a better team than whatever Nogueira is doing right now. Big thing is the age. Nogueira's 40 years old, man. Like, there is a chance he turns back the clock like his brother did in Brazil against Brendan Schaub. But number one, Nogueira was getting destroyed in that fight, Big Nog, before he got that kind of lucky punch. And secondly, Ryan Bader is not Brendan Schaub. Ryan Bader is a very good fighter. Ryan Bader's not a champion. He's not an elite fighter, quote unquote, but Ryan Bader is much, much better than Brendan Schaub ever was. Like, on his best night, Brendan Schaub was not ever as good of a fighter as Ryan Bader. As evidenced by everything. Brendan Schaub couldn't win the Ultimate Fighter. Ryan Bader could. Brendan Schaub beat a couple of old guys and then fell to a bunch of younger guys. And even some old guys. Ryan Bader put together win streaks and basically only loses to those top tier dudes. Layoff pretty similar. May and September. It's not like he's been out for 9 months. He's been out for 8 months. So still pretty long layoff versus Bader, who just beat Latifi with that very impressive knee, which was awesome. Slight winning percentage advantage for Bader. Slight finishing for Nogueira. Slight pace advantage for Nogueira. I think Bader's trending up. Besides the Anthony Johnson fight, which was a terrible game plan, he was just kind of scared of the knockout, right? That's fine. And that's just not the guy you can fight when you're scared. Fighting Anthony Johnson scared is, you might as well just lay down, which is basically what Bader did. But I still think, the win over Rashad was really impressive. The win over Phil Davis was impressive. The win over OSP was impressive. He's gotten better. His striking is markedly better. I don't think he's going to get caught by Nogueira. And Nogueira, okay, you beat up Patrick Cummins. Before that, you lost to Shogun in a kind of close fight of decrepit old guys that was sad. And before that, you got sparked out in 44 seconds by also Anthony Johnson. No southpaws. I think Little Nog actually might be a southpaw. That might be wrong. Again, home cage. So if there's a decision, it might go to Nogueira. But it's 5 rounds, man. I can't imagine Nogueira lasting 5 rounds. Or if he does, he's just going to be on the bottom, just, getting Russell humped. Ryan Bader's 14-5 in the UFC, man. Ryan Bader does not get the respect he deserves. He really doesn't. Whereas Nogueira is barely over 500, 5-4. So, again, both of these guys have been knocked out. Nogueira could catch him, but I think Ryan Bader is going to cruise, probably going to get the finish, I would say. Maybe by knockout, TKO, ground and pound, perhaps even on the feet. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to go 5 rounds. So if you like those prop bets or you have prop bets, I bet in Vegas where I live at the casino, we just get the round props and we don't get the by decision or by knockouts or whatnot, or at least not at the casinos I know of. If you know where to get those, let me know. I've asked. No one seems to know. But I think Gadelha by decision is a good bet, and Bader by finish. But I will be betting minus 175 to win 100 to get Ryan Bader and Claudia Gadelha on a parlay. So that's going to wrap up this video. I'll talk to you guys pretty soon when I have my next bet, next fight breakdown.